When it comes to those things that we're not used to and comfortable with, I'm looking at every possible thing that could go wrong. Deborah called me last week as we were going to the Super Bowl, and you were talking about how you thought it was great how one of the coaches spent so much time talking about his plan. And I said, that's funny. That's exactly what we do. Those who succeed in our business, and I believe the failure rate, Ron, what's the failure rate in restaurants?
About 6 out of 10 every 3 years will close.
Yeah, it's exciting news for us. So 6 out of 10 will close after 3 years. Right now I own 2 of them that right now are beneath last year's waters, and it's not a good place to be. So planning, to me, really sets the stage for our ability to succeed. At Jim and Nick's, we're an Alabama company originally, so we keep it simple. We didn't do 7 Ps, we do 3 Ps. That is people, product, and position. It's not rocket science. I feel a little foolish sitting up here telling y'all some things that I know y'all know, but people, product, and position, we're drilling down that probably harder than we ever have. In the 25 years, we're taking our Southern chopped salad that has 12 moving ingredients, and we are breaking it down on a shift-by-shift basis until that Southern chopped salad is perfection. And even when we're thinking we can move off after 2 weeks, we'll come back in week 3 and order one, and something will either be missing or wrong with it. It's not a perfect business we're in. So the fundamental part of our business, which is people, product, and position, critical element. I go back to this interdependency of my partners. 30 years in this business, or sometimes I think I know better. I've learned to surrender that ego, and I guess would tell you that I have a great deal of admiration and respect for my partners. Humility is something that I think is key to our business. Humility to not only serve, it is a humble business we're in, to serve, but it's also humility to ask, and I'm not afraid after this many years to ask. We've done a lot of initiatives that I question, challenge their value. One of them is on today, as a matter of fact, called Taco Tuesday. When I heard that we were going to do Taco Tuesday, Nick said, hey, we're doing these in Birmingham and it's great. And it's true, you'll experience some later on where y'all will get some fried catfish tacos amongst some other goodies we're preparing for you. It says you take any one of our slow smoked proteins, wrap it up in a warm flour tortilla with some fresh pico de gallo, a little cilantro, and maybe some chipotle sour cream. It'll be one of the best tacos you've ever had. And we're going to make that something, it's called Taco Tuesday. We're going to knock down all of our Mexican beers to $1.49. I said, Nick, they cost $1.09. He said, I know, 40 cents profit, right? I said, okay. Of course, we got the $3 Cuervo margaritas. Taco Tuesday, it's in its 12th week. It is the single strongest days of increased guest counts over the prior year in every one of our restaurants. And mind you, there are 27 Jim and Nick's across the country, primarily in the Southeast and Denver, but Taco Tuesday became a point of difference. And what it did was, we're not only building what we really hope to build is frequency, because they came in for a pork plate or a beef sandwich, and instead they wound up getting a fried catfish taco or a pork taco, and it didn't necessarily satisfy the barbecue craving, but they got this other really great. We were just named by Urban Spoon the best taqueria in Birmingham. I swear. I swear to God, that happened yesterday. It just came out by Urban Spoon, the #1 taqueria, and I've seen all these authentic, names, and Jim and Nick's is at the top of the stack. So there's something to be said for Taco Tuesday, and I was not necessarily a believer, but I put trust in my partners. Happy Days was another one. Where does it make sense to run 54% bar cost week in, week out? Well, it does. I'm stealing market share. I hate to say it, not from any of you, of course, but where we're located, I know people are coming across the street going, I used to go, as an example, up and coming. They would say, I used to go to Bill's place across the street over at Norman's, but, I'm paying $4 for a butt or $2 for a butt. I mean, I just soon have my 2 for 1, if you will. So Happy Days is another piece of it. And we re-engineered little things. We actually reduced our prices. we increased our food costs and reduced our prices to offer better value. We feel that we've done a lot of things to do better purchasing, leveraging better. The market's bearing better prices from, say, 2 years ago. There's a lot of commodities that are, in fact, at their lowest they've been in 5 or 6 years. We decided, rather than take that on the profit side, to go ahead and reverse some of our pricing and position ourselves really to offer that back to the guests to build guest counts and build frequency. So those are some of the things that I think that have helped us become successful. As far as myself, I go back, as I said, 30 years in the business. I earned my hairline the old-fashioned way. I started off with Houston's, very militant style, regimented program. I remember somebody actually wrote George Beale and talked about what a tyrant I was, and he called me up and congratulated me. Couldn't have read a better letter. I mellowed out quickly after I met Phil Hickey. I know Jocks and Jills. You know my beloved Phil. It was more of a warm and fuzzy society across the street at the Cooker, and I learned about people relations then. And all the while Ted's was just an unbelievable experience to start that from scratch. Probably for me, the most rewarding time was those 5 years at the Green Hills Grill in Nashville with Phil and Mike, where we literally did grow sales 15% on average 5 years in a row. We started at $27,000 a year, and we finished at $80,000, and we sold it. And it wound up closing about 5 years later, 6 years later, I believe. It was sad because it really became an icon in Nashville restaurateur. And I guess Al, flipping back to what's going on within Jim and Nick's, 3 restaurants up, 2 down. What's the biggest difference? It's fundamentals. It's operations. It's the things that I like to think none of us take for granted any given day. It's people, product, position, and just never really taking anything less than the highest standard wins. So as far as any other things I would be able to impart, I would tell you that the only other 2 books I put in my repertoire besides Covey's 7 Habits. Has anyone ever read the book Good to Great? They say the premise of the book is this: that the enemy of great is good. Once we get to good, we stop. And there's a couple things in there. They talk about red flag mechanisms. I thought I had listened to red flag mechanisms and paid attention to them. We do this thing, a profile, when we hire people, and I went back and looked at the people who were struggling with our company. The test came back poor, but the other components of that interview process, said go ahead and hire them. They're good people. We hired them, and they're struggling. And I ignored a red flag mechanism. Anymore, we've had some great interviews recently with some great people out there, and we've turned them down because the results came back poor. Every other key indicator said to hire them. The book talks about when you find great people, even if you don't have room, salary or otherwise, hire them anyway. They'll find a seat on the bus. And autopsies without emotion was another one of my favorite ones, where in our business, we make mistakes every day, and some of them more fatal than others. But to get out of the blame game, the great companies sit down, they talk about it for a specific amount of time, 10, 15 minutes, they walk through it, figure out what went wrong, learn from it, and move forward without any blame. And it becomes a less of an emotional process, and they all get better for it. So, I don't know, I guess at this point in time, I'd open it up to any questions y'all might have.